1212. Let's talk something about the new album. It was recorded at Compass Point, NASA. Why?
Well, first and foremost, it's an excellent studio, and also we wanted a bit of a break as well. Plus the fact that we recorded the last 3 albums in London. So we thought, it'd be a good place as any, really,
But did you ever visit before in that place? Was this the first time you were there?
Yeah, it's the first time, yeah. We'll be doing the next album there as well, I think, because it's a really good studio.
Which was its advantages? It was some...
Well, the actual studio itself was really good studio, good equipment, technically the stuff was really good and everything, and there was good sound in the actual rooms and all that, but also the fact of everything being in the same place, because all the apartments were around the studio, and so everyone was like in the same place, and it was good for morale, because you could all sort of go out and get drunk together and all that,
From a record, I've only heard it once, but I think it was kind of large, very large sound.
Yeah.
Something like that,
Yeah, I think it's the best sounding album we've had, the production and everything, and the actual sound of the guitars and everything else.
Yeah.
It's really the best we've had.
Yeah, but the producer is the same as before.
Yeah.
Was it the first heavy album ever made in that studio?
To my knowledge, I think it was AC/DC, Back in Black album. Mainly before, there was mainly Roxy Music had been there and a fair few other bands, but they weren't really heavy rock bands, they were more sort of like pop bands really, or reggae bands,
How much of the year you spent in Britain?
Not very much. We've just done a British tour, which was a month tour, and we were there for about a week before that. Before that, we wasn't back home really since Christmas. I was about 2 weeks at Christmas, 2 or 3 weeks at Christmas, and before that, it was months before. Again on a British tour last year. So we don't spend a lot of time there, mainly because we're touring so much. We toured 10 months last year. We toured from February the 25th right up till December the 10th. Admittedly, the month of that was a British tour, but the rest of it was all like around the world,
But do you see still your kind of home audience there?
Oh yeah, Britain? I still regard Britain as my home, even though I'm not there very often. It's still home, and the audience is obviously special to us because it's playing home,
How many concerts do you have had during the last 3 years? Have you any idea?
I've lost count, I think. I think we did something like 180 concerts last year in the 10 months period. Before that we did about 8-month tour. I can't remember how many gigs it was. I think it's probably about 130. And so, I don't know, adding them all up, I suppose it must be about 400 or something, or maybe more. I don't know.
So it's almost something like every third day? Something
like that, yeah.
And your first headlining tour was in 1980 or something?
That's right, yeah. We did a 45-day British tour, which was, around about end of July, I think. Yeah, June and July in 1980. And that was the first of many.
Yeah. But you have also worked as a support band in the States.
Yeah.
For other bands, yeah. How was it to perform before an audience of 75,000 people?
Oh, it's fantastic. That was with Foreigner, actually. Foreigner, Loverboy, Scorpions and us. That in just outside LA, a place called Anaheim. And it was fantastic. It's a bit nerve-wracking, really, to sort of go on in front of that many people, but once it's past 20,000 people, it does. It could be 120,000 people, and it doesn't really matter anymore. It's just so many people. It doesn't really matter.
It does not need. It's not the need for any special effects or something because it's such a.
Well, not really. When you're supporting anyway, you can't use special effects, and plus the fact that it was in the daytime, so special effects wouldn't like lighting and wouldn't really work anyway. So really, it was just an atmosphere thing of trying to, get an audience to have a good time, like a good time festival, which it worked really well,
What's the basic difference between US and UK heavy metal bands? Is there any? Just
I
band
think,
like Loverboy.
Well, Loverboy, a good band. In fact, they went down very well at that particular festival. They went down better than Foreigner, actually, believe it or not. But they're more sort of laid back, really, than the sort of music that, say, us or the Scorpions play. There's not so much aggression, or it's not so powerful in actual music. They write some good songs though, but they're more geared to sort of radio play, really. In America it's a sort of formulated style now, which seems to get a lot of radio play, obviously sells a lot of records, but we don't really fit into that. That's why we don't really get very much radio play, because I think we're too heavy, really.
But because of that you don't have so much airplay. Is that the only way to break in the US, to get as much as possible?
Well,
as a support?
No, the way we did it was just a tour. It's the only way, because we can't rely on radio play, because we don't really get very much, because it's not really the sort of sound that the radio programmers use over there. Which is a shame, because it's not just us. There's a lot of bands that don't get radio play. But basically, we toured. Excuse me, we toured so much. Like last year, we did 5 months in America, and the year before it was like 3.5 months. So we really toured hard, and that's the only way for a band like ourselves to break through, by touring. But it's the same everywhere. It's not just like that in America. It's like it everywhere in the world, really. So touring pays off, because this time we'll be headlining, and basically it's without hardly any radio play. So if we do happen to get any radio play, well, it'd probably go crazy.
Yeah. So you're headlining on the next show?
Yeah.
Yeah. How big are the halls?
Well, it varies really, from anything from 5,000 to up to about 12 or 14,000. It's very strange in America. You can go one place, you play say 4,000 or 5,000 people. You go 50 miles down the road and you can play to 12,000 people and sell it out. It's just certain areas. I don't know. They're just like have a lot of fans there, and it's really strange. You can be really big in one area and mean very little in somewhere else. It's just such a big country,
Yeah. Did you make any money from that last year's tour?
No, we don't make money touring, really.
Yeah. Just
if we break even, then it's good.
Also from this tour?
Yeah, similar sort of thing. Because, well, in fact, it cost more to tour this time because of the whole world tour. We're headlining everywhere. Up until, well, this year really, everywhere else we headlined anyway before for the last couple of years, but except for America. And then this time we were headlining there, so we're taking all our equipment everywhere, so it costs so much money. But it's worth it, because we can put on a really good show and, basically use all our effects that we want to use.
Have you had any pressure to make a record for US airplay? No way. There's no way we'd do that. That's one thing we've always been really strong about. We've always thought that, the Americans have got to take us as we are. And if they don't like us for what we are, we're not going to change to suit them. But then again, we don't really have to anyway, because we've built up a really loyal following out there, hardcore following. And basically that's why they like us, because we are different. We don't sound like formulated radio play. Because there's a certain style of writing and certain style of producing, of all the 4-part harmonies and this sort of thing, which, it does get radio play, and it would have been easier for us to try and write songs like that to get radio play and sell a lot of records, but that's not the way we want to do it. We want to do it on our own merits because of what we are. And if you do that kind of record, it could harm your audience here?
Well, we wouldn't do it anyway, because we're not into that, totally not into that at all. We are into what we're writing ourselves, and basically that's our attitude. If they don't like it, then it's too bad,
How many people do you have on the road altogether?
Well, approximately, I suppose it must be about 20 people, I think, something like that. With catering and everything else, and the road crew, lighting guys, PA guys, personal road manager and everything. It must be something like 20 people. That's apart from the band.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
So it's expensive.
Very, yeah. But it's worth it, you know. If you want to put on a good show, you've got to use good people, and you can't start cutting corners and saying, "Oh, we'll only take two people," when you really need 3 to do the lights or whatever. You can't cut corners like that because the show just won't work properly otherwise.
Is there any stop to that kind of development that the expenses are going higher and higher and higher?
Well, in actual fact, what we've done this time, because we're touring like headlining, so we couldn't do it before because we were doing like 4 or 5 months in America last year where we weren't headlining, so we weren't using all our show. So we had to hire the stuff, like the PA and the lights, because it wasn't, worthwhile buying. But this year, because we're headlining like for 7 or 8 months, and we're headlining all the time using the same gear, it would have cost us probably more money to hire than to buy the stuff. So we've actually bought it. We bought the PA, we bought the monitor system, and we've bought all the actual special lights. The trussing and all that we've hired because you don't really need to buy that. But basically we bought it, and the PA is a really good PA. It's really up to standard PA, which will be good, for a good few years. And the lighting system can be interchanged in so many different ways that'll be good for at least another 2 or 3 years. So it's worthwhile for us to buy it. It's cheaper, in fact.
But is there any place that the traveling is too expensive for any band? I mean, so you can't travel anymore because it's so expensive.
Australia, no. Well, actually, Australia and Japan's very expensive, especially Australia. But we toured there like the end of last year, and we will still tour there again. We'll probably lose a bit of money, but we tour there because we want to tour there, and because we like the place and we want to try and break there more. I mean, we're doing very well there. We had a platinum album there, but it still loses a bit of money. But then again, one place, if it loses a bit of money, it can maybe be off-guarded by another place where you maybe earn a little bit there, perhaps. So over the whole world tour, we don't look at it as one country that loses money. We look at it as an overall thing of a world tour, and then we kind of break even, So one place will offset another, perhaps,
How do you avoid the pressures of the traveling?
You can't avoid them, really. They're there all the time, It's we get tired. The main thing, really, is that we get like colds and stuff. Like we've all got colds at the moment, and it takes you like a long time to shake them off because you can't take medicine in the daytime because you knock yourself out, and you got the gig to do, so you can't do that. You can only take medicine after the gig, and it just takes twice as long to get rid of it. So if you got a cold or something, like for instance, we've had colds like for about 3 weeks. Whereas normally a week would be enough to get rid of it, and it's been hanging on for about 3 weeks because your body gets a bit run down when you're on tour. So you just find it harder to sort of shake them off.
Yeah. Did your previous singer and the drummer leave because of the pressures of the travel?
Yeah, that was mainly to do with it. Yeah. Obviously, the singer was the worst case really because singing all the time, and he was sort of not really looking after his voice, to be truthful. He was not well. Let's just say he wasn't looking after himself. So with the pressures there, it's like his voice was suffering and the gigs were suffering and everything else, and he was fed up with being on the road anyway, and so it was just one of those things. It was like a mutual agreement in the end, really. A bit of both sides sort of thing.
What's he doing nowadays?
He's got his own band, but he hasn't actually got a record contract yet, and he's just done some demo tapes. And I think mainly he probably just do a few sort of dates in England and that. He doesn't really like touring, so I can't see him going on a world tour or anything. Which is a shame, really, because I think he's got a lot to offer, but he's not really into it anymore.
Yeah.